So I just wanted to give my final review of the final round of this year's Six Nations. So we're going to start at the Wales-Italy game, which I was actually fortunate enough to get to the Millennium Stadium to watch this game. Now it seems like Wales seem to actually finally find some kind of form in this game. Recorded one of their biggest wins in Six Nations history to take a 67-14 win over Italy. Now, what they started on and what they continued to do certainly throughout the first half, was they kept the pressure on Italy and made sure that in the first half all of the action took place in the Italian half. Now, Wales did do very well at soaking up the occasional Italian pressure, and then what did they do? They hit them on the break. They ran at them with their backs. Now, that was, for me, what I've been crying out for Wales to play with your backs a little bit more. Now, Italy were suffering from a very depleted lineup. This was by no means a first string Italian team. But the one thing I will give credit for the Italians for is when they hit those tackles, they made sure that they made those tackles hurt, and they hit really hard. Great tackling from the Italians, but they were just not very good at defending or even attacking the high ball, and they really just seemed content to not content any upper numbers and just let Wales have them. Now, Italy did improve as the second half got on, and you could really see how good Campagnaro has been for them in this tournament so long. He was so far he was really dangerous, and when he got running, he really caused a couple of issues for Wales. Now, Italy did get a couple of tries on the board, and these actually gave them surprisingly well worked team tries, which you've not always seen from Italy. It's normally been attacking platform from the forwards, rolling on, the backs finish them off. This was actually good open backs play, which I haven't seen Italy do, and I would like to see them continue to do well. Now, one thing both sides did is they kept their offload game really, really, really well, and made sure and you could see that certainly from the Italians and from Welsh as well, was that they were trying to get quick ball at the breakdowns, make sure that the defence was always on the back foot. Now, Wales finally used their backs. I've been crying out for this, and George North showed how dangerous he actually is, and there was a lot of good attacking running from them. Now, my frustration with Wales is, why won't they do this in other games? Why is it only when it comes to them playing a lower ranked opposition do they actually sort of grow a pair of balls basically and start to attack? They're going to need to do this in other games if they want to be taken as a serious contender. All is said and done, though, I still wasn't hugely impressed by Wales. I don't know why. I just didn't feel like this was crushing and everything, but I have no idea why I felt that. Now, at the Millennium Stadium, one thing I noticed, the atmosphere was surprisingly low-key. I've been to the Millennium Stadium before. Normally it's an absolute cauldron, and it just seemed to lack some of its vigour, and it just didn't seem, the crowd just didn't seem as enthused as I'd seen them before. Now, this result means that Wales do secure second place in the table. Have they earned it? You could say they got the results, they've earned it. I can't really say any more than that. Now we're going to move on to the next game, and we're going to talk about the Ireland versus Scotland game. Now, this was one that Ireland won 35-25, and that was a surprise win for me, as I honestly thought Scotland would get the win. Ireland have not looked confident, they've lacked leadership. They've just been a bit poor, basically, in the Six Nations. So I was surprised, they took this. I knew it was going to be close, but I was surprised that Ireland got the win. Now, Ireland made sure they got on the board really early in the game, but the one thing I was surprised about was how poor Johnny Sexton's kicking was. I mean, he's an excellent kicker, and he was just really off his game today. Now, the main problem for Scotland was the amount of penalties they were giving away in really unnecessary situations, which meant that even with Sexton's poor kicking today, they were racking the point. That Ireland were racking the points up, and again, as I said with Wales, Ireland finally got their backs into the game, and they started picking holes in the Scottish defensive line, which they did very, very effectively. Now, the game overall, I cannot say this was one of the most exciting ones I've ever seen, but I mean, Ireland were quite obviously in control of the game. Scotland did improve in the second half, though, and they started to play some good running rugby, especially with a phenomenal try from Stuart Hogg, just cutting through the entire Irish defence from just inside his own half and just making his way through. Now, as good as some of the Scottish running was, the one thing that I felt they were doing wrong was they were taking too many risks and trying to run the ball out of their own 22 when they could and should have just cleared their lines, and this put additional pressure on the team, as the Irish defence was, again, as it has been throughout this tournament, has been very, very solid, and they're really able to not allow the Scots out of their 22. And then what happened? A needless yellow card from Scotland allowed Ireland to take control of the game, get a try on the board, and effectively that just sealed the win for them. Again, as I said, the Irish defence was very good, and one of the things they were really good at is just making sure that at the breakdown they just didn't allow Scotland to make those little gains at the gain line. Later on in the game, Scotland picked up a bit, and they did get that a late try, but it was too little too late to change the game. And this result means that Ireland actually moved above Scotland to finish in third place, and meant that Scotland did finish in fourth. I would have to say Scotland, even with this result, Scotland can feel that they've had a more successful tournament from their point of view than Ireland have. So moving on to the final game, this was France versus England. Now this was the game that England needed to win to secure a Grand Slam, and they did so 21-31. Now France finally showed some signs of playing some good rugby, and I know they're capable of, and they really flew out the blocks, and for the first 10 minutes they exerted a huge amount of pressure on the England team. England, however, did defend really well, and they did not allow France to score the try. They did give away a couple of penalties, but they really soaked up the pressure extremely well. Danny Carey eventually got England over the line with a really, really well worked, some quick thinking, and not too long after that, Dan Cole managed to crash over to give England to make sure England retained the lead. I can't say again, like the Ireland-Scotland game, this wasn't really exciting. It was quite a cagey game, and England were bleeding points through the penalties they were giving away, and this really did allow France to stay in touch. This was really nip and tuck all the way through the game. Now the French backs played so much better, and it made me so happy in many respects. I don't know why I haven't been doing this earlier on in the competition, but again, Vakatawa, as I've been saying, he was great again, and Scott Spedding really stepped up to the plate today, and he was so dangerous running in the loose. England did look a bit more nervous and more subdued than the French did, but they made sure that once they got in front of France, they never ceded the lead. They didn't look comfortable in the lead in many occasions in this game, but they definitely made sure that they didn't allow the French to get in front at any point during this game. Now, where England did really excel for me were the lineouts. They stole several French throw-ins, and this is, George Cruz and Maro Itoje were really great again in the second rows, and on top of this, Billy Vunipola was again England's best player on the pitch, and for me, he's got to be player of the tournament. He was just almost impossible for the French to put down on when he got the ball running, and he's a big power player. England didn't look spectacular, but they provided that solid defensive line, which they have lacked before. More discipline maybe, but they were bleeding penalties, and what I was very impressed about was they didn't allow the French to score a try despite how dangerous the French looked. Worthy winners though overall for the tournament. England, they lift their first Grand Slam in 13 years. Well worked. Eddie Jones came out and said England are 4 or 5 years away from their best, so if he's talking the truth on that, that for me as an England fan is a phenomenal thing for us to look forward to. And I look forward to seeing what he's on. I think he's going to be a great coach, and I think he's going to bring the best out of the English. So that's my review of this year's Six Nations. I hope people have enjoyed my review. I'd like to hear what other people think, though. Stick your name down, stick a comment down, and I hope to hear from people soon.